Hi, it's Marnie from womenspeakers.com back here again with one of our featured speakers, Victoria Duerstock. Welcome to you.
Hey, thank you for having me.
You're hailing to us from just outside of Memphis. Where do you live?
Just south of Memphis, Tennessee, and North Mississippi, kind of right up in that northern corner between Arkansas and Memphis in Hernando.
I have to tell you, you don't sound like a Mississippi girl.
Well, I've only been here about 10 years, so I guess it hasn't really, quite logged in just yet.
Where was home?
Florida for many years. We lived in Pensacola and enjoyed the sun and the beach.
That's great. That's great. Well, I'm down here taking care of that for you now. So.
I am jealous.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm really happy to not be in the Minnesota cold today. Oh my goodness.
No doubt. It's frigid.
It is really bad. Well, we are here to share some of your favorite aha moments with God, and I'm excited to dive right in because you've got some really great ones here. So I'm going to start with the first one. The calm a purge offers far outweighs the pain. Okay. What kind of purges do you recommend or do yourself?
Oh, well, I should do more than I do. That's quite honest. But the purge here is just kind of, first of all, kind of related to our homes. And of course, everyone's talking about it right now, which is very fortunate for me because I didn't know that was going to happen. But that clutter can build up in our homes very easily. It doesn't matter if we're talking about a junk drawer or a room with paper and books or what it is, but we can get cluttered easily. And then our homes become a place that are a little more chaotic. They're not comfortable. We don't enjoy being there. It doesn't feel peaceful. And the interesting part about that is that the same thing relates to our hearts. And when our heart is cluttered with sin, with guilt, with a past mistake that maybe we're still dealing with or we haven't confessed, then we become cluttered ourselves. And then we really have to go in and we have to purge that, because that's when the calm comes. That's when the peace that the Lord can offer us comes, when we confess and forsake. And so the calm and the comfort that a purge offers is really kind of twofold in my mind.
Yeah, I love that. And you actually have some books coming out about this, about how the home connects in with your heart. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Heart and Home is Design Basics for Your Soul and Living Space. It's a 90-day devotional that is coming out in April. And I cover topics that are kind of design basics, balance, flow, harmony, and even a focal point and negative space. And negative space is that topic that we were just talking about, clutter. When there's too many things on a wall, you can't look at the wall and know where to put your eye. You just kind of feel frazzled. And so when we clear out some of the clutter, have a few less items, then we feel a little more calm. And so I relate that to verses in scripture that talk about the same thing that we need to have in our hearts and in our homes. And I get to leave a little design tip, and then it's full color, beautiful interior shots.
Wow.
And it's just been such a joy to work on. And I'm just now looking at the printer sample of that book, which has been a lot of fun to actually see it, in hardcover. And then working on the edits for the second book, which is Heart and Home for Christmas, celebrating joy in your living space. And there are 100 devotionals there, all about the season. And again, relating design and the calm that we need, design basics, all those different ideas that we talk about in the first book, but with a Christmas type theme.
That's awesome. And then this is also a speaking topic that you do.
Yes, ma'am. It sure is.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, you guys can learn more about that over at womenspeakers.com. And right now we're going to go on to your next quote, because that's what we're here to do right now. So I like this one. Be willing to hear the critique.
Yes. So one of the things, that I've done in my life is I have a master's degree in music education, and I've also homeschooled, as you did as well, Marnie. And so one of the things that I enjoy doing is teaching. And in the last few years, I've been able to start teaching authors and writers about building their platform, about how to be able to advance their careers, because they know they've got a message that they want to share. They have a story. And so one of the things that's difficult to do, especially as an artist of any kind, I think, is to hear a critique. And it hurts because we want everybody to love our baby. And our baby is, whether it's a piece of music or a book, we want everybody to love our baby. And when they have something that feels negative, we take it personally many times. And many times that's not the case. A critique doesn't have to be a negative attack. It can just be, hey, this is where you can improve. So be willing to hear the critique is one of those teaching moments that I love to share with people when I have the opportunity.
It takes me back. I was president of the Friends of the Library for years and years in where we lived for 35 years in War Road. And before I ever wrote my first book, I had hosted a author trainer, and she brought with, as part of the training, she brought with her one of her manuscripts and she's a best-selling author, many books, and she brought with one of her recent manuscripts, and she held it up and she said, I just wanted to pass this around and let you see what it looks like when you get it back from the editor. And what it looked like, it was like blood. It was like red everywhere. There wasn't a paragraph, I don't think, that wasn't scribbled and circled, and it was just crazy. And I thought, this is a best-selling author who's got many wonderful books out there and still requires this much editing. So it kind of puts things into perspective for us. If we're going to go to the next level up, we do have to be willing to take the critique. And I love that. Just, you just set it right out there for yourself. Be willing. It's going to change the outcome.
Yes. And, there are times when the critique is valid and we need to make changes. And there are times when a critique is something that maybe not for us for today. So there's wisdom that comes with hearing those critiques and being able to kind of learn what I need and what I don't.
I know editors and even publicists, they will say, you can tell if an author is a new author by how much they resist editing. And the people that have been in it longer, just already used to it. And this is just how it goes. It's just what it is. It's just what it is. Okay, on to the next one. The grace of Christ fills the chasm created through disagreement. And this one is so important because disagreements do come up.
Yes. And this is one of the topics that I talk about in Heart and Home is unity and harmony. And we can talk about it as it relates to the church. We can talk about it as it relates to our home. We can talk about it in a variety of ways. And, I think that grace, when we understand what it means to us, that God has given it to us freely, and as Christians that have accepted that grace that he's offered, then we should be more than generous to give back to others. And in that, I always try to, at least in our family, I try to tell our children, believe the best about each other. When we truly believe that the intention of another person isn't to harm us or to hurt us, but just to be able to be understood, sometimes we listen in a different way to each other than when we think they're attacking us or when there's another motive for that disharmony that's occurring.
It just goes right back to Hebrews 11:6, which is, in order to please God, you must believe he exists and is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. And this concept that we trust his heart. We don't understand what he's doing, but we trust his heart. And we just extend that kind of love then to those around us as well. And his healing and compassion comes in, and it says in Isaiah that his peace is what breaks down all the walls of division. And it's
absolutely.
So
yes. Yeah. And, when we are living with intentionality in the fruits of the Spirit, we're going to exhibit those to others. And if we're not, then that's where those friction moments take place. And we can usually tell when we're being prickly that we're probably not where we're supposed to be.
We're tapping into our own stuff instead of into the stuff of God.
That's right. Absolutely.
Okay, the next one is, we find joy often gift wrapped with difficulty. That's true.
I was writing about this recently, and I love to talk about joy, choosing joy. I memorized the book of James a couple years ago, and it made a huge impact on just my thought processes. Every time an occurrence happened that wasn't easy, I'd think of something from James, and choosing joy. But, he talks a lot about the fact that, in that difficulty, in that trial, that's where hope is produced. And that's what produces the long suffering. All of the joy, all of the things we have are actually byproducts of adversity, of trial in our lives. And not that we ask for, pain, or struggle, but that when we're in the middle of it, we can look and we can say, joy is coming. There is joy coming. And even Psalms tells us there's always joy in the morning.
Yeah, I love it. Just on Monday morning when I was running on the elliptical, I had my headsets in and I was listening to James chapter 1 over and over and over in every different version that had audio available.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's just such an amazing thing that he says, count it all joy when you run into troubles.
Right.
Wow.
And it's hard to do. It's hard to do because we want to wish that away, right? As soon as that difficulty happens, and I do it too, I just want to wish it away. I don't want to have to go through that, or I don't even want my children to go through hard times. I don't want anybody that I love to face difficulty. But yet we know, based on scriptural evidence and what we're taught from scripture, that will produce joy in us, and that will produce something that brings God greater glory than if we always had it easy.
Absolutely. And just the reality that it's going to come. You can be doing everything right. And in fact, sometimes it gets worse when you're doing everything right. Just look at Job.
I know. I mean, he is the perfect example. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so we just know that when these trials comes, God hasn't forgotten about us. He isn't being the bad guy today. It just is what it is. You're going to go through this, and you can either go through it with him or you can go through it without him. And I just mean, I don't mean that he isn't there. I mean that you're not consciously aware of his presence, which, honestly, like you said about joy, I always say my full-time job is choosing joy. I do a lot of other things, but all day long I have to choose whether I'm going to rejoice in the Lord always or not.
Yes.
Because that's the command. Rejoice in the Lord always. And it's sometimes really tough to do.
It is.
Okay. All right. Let's go to nothing is I love this one. Nothing is wasted. None of it. The trials, the tears, or the pain.
Yes, and this kind of goes hand in hand with just talking about the trials that help create joy for us. I was writing for an anthology a few years ago, Words to Cheer Your Heart. And one of those things is that I wanted to share with them was that none of the things that you go through are wasted. God receives the glory from each one of those things. He repairs and restores. He may not even show us the side of eternity, but we know we can rest in the assurance that he works all things together for our good and his glory. And when we can just rest in that, then we know that those tears that he's gathered up and he knows all about, he's written them down. He knows all of what we experience and what we go through, and none of it is wasted ever. He promises that.
It's so comforting too, and just to recognize that it isn't, that he's bringing good out of everything. It isn't always like what I would define as good.
That's true.
I mean, yeah. I don't think that while Stephen was being stoned, that it felt good. It didn't.
No.
And Jesus,
and I'm sure he didn't understand either.
Right. And Jesus being crucified didn't feel good. I mean, it felt terrible. It felt really horrible, to the point where he, said, God, have you forsaken me? Why does it feel like you've forsaken me here? And so, where we have these opportunities to trust God are the points where it feels like nothing good could ever come out of this.
Yes.
Those are the moments where we turn. That's where I think that verse, the sacrifice of praise, really comes in. When you feel like doing anything except praising God.
That's right. And I think those happen a lot of times, at least in my life. My experience has been when I've begged God for an answer that I believed was the right thing that would glorify God. And he said no. The no answers are the hard ones, because I think, well, God wouldn't want us to go through this. God doesn't want this to happen in our lives. Those are the moments that have been this greatest stretching of my faith, but also the ones where I've grown the most and realized how much he received glory from that. And I still, at this point, don't know exactly what that looks like. I think in eternity, maybe he'll share that with us. But I do know that none of it's wasted, because he doesn't cause us to go through things in order to break us down or to make us miserable. I know that he is always looking at what brings him the most glory.
Right. And I do think he allows some struggles to come into our life just to show us what we're really got going on, like that we've got all kinds of faith in something else other than him.
Absolutely. I do turn to my knees a lot more when there are struggles. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Well, this has been so much fun and it's gone really fast, but you guys want to check out Victoria Duerstock, Duerstock. And you can find her over at womenspeakers.com or on her website by the same name, victoriaduerstock.com. Her new book's coming out, Heart and Home: Design Basics for Your Soul and Your Living Space, as well as Heart and Home for Christmas. And I'm so excited to see what God's going to do next in your life. And I know that you're available to speak to. So you guys, if you need a speaker, especially if we're looking forward to Christmas or something like that, she'd be the girl, but anytime is the right time. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks, Victoria.
Thank you, Marnie. I appreciate you having me.
Okay.